up, guys? For lack of a better term, fucking amazing. Holy shit, this is a great space. My name is Carpenter. I'm an illustrator, designer. Like a lot of you guys, and I'm not going to use the mic much because I'm kind of a loud talker, but I love to make, and that's what I do, and I think that's what this whole festival is kind of about, is making. From music to design to art, and that's no different for me. And I don't really discriminate on what I make necessarily, from doing brand identities and logo systems to vinyl and apparel for various companies, doing more and more children's books now, and lots of dimensional objects like snowboards, a great company out of Canada we've kind of teamed up with, as well as your typical editorial and spot illustration as well. I don't discriminate on what I make. I love to make. The act of making is wonderful. I'm from the great city of Kansas City, Missouri. I am super, super proud of the fact that I'm from the Midwest, as are a lot of you, I think. And more than anything, and I'm sure a lot of you guys from Cleveland and other cities from the Midwest can kind of attest to this, that being from the Midwest has really kind of changed the way I think and the way I work and the way I design. Just certain attributes and different things I've taken away from the Midwest have really, really formed the way I work. I think when we think of Kansas City, we all kind of think of a couple basic things, or maybe you don't think of anything, to be honest. But I think of Handsome George. Anybody's a sports fan like I am. George Brett was an amazing third baseman for the Royals back when the world actually, you might not know, we still have a professional team in Kansas City. And George was my man back in the 80s. But what's great about George is really, he stands for everything that was Kansas City, or is Kansas City. And when I say that, I guess everything that is the Midwest is he wasn't the most talented guy. Yeah, he's handsome. But he rolled up his sleeves and he got shit done. That's what it came down to. He never was the most talented, but he got shit done. And I like that about George. I like that about the Midwest and Kansas City, where I come from. We have amazing barbecue. I can talk for 30 minutes about barbecue. And I can give you 30 restaurants that you should go to. Bill liked it. But it really is some of the best barbecue in the world. And again, when I think of Kansas City, I think of the Midwest. It's a place that it's a $10 meal. You roll your sleeves up, you have barbecue sauce over your face and your elbows, and that's great. And it's satisfying and it's wonderful. Kansas City, our best restaurant, our best barbecue restaurant is run over the back of a gas station. It's called Oklahoma Joe's, and there's no better meal in the world. We have a new kind of semi-resident in Kansas City named Anthony Bourdain. He does his no reservation show, and he's done like 3 Kansas City barbecue editions just in the past year. And his kind of quote this past year was, he came out with like the 10 best meals in the world that he's ever had. Number 5 was Oklahoma Joe's in Kansas City. And he said, Oklahoma Joe's is the best barbecue in Kansas City, which makes it the best barbecue in the world. So again, it's no nonsense. It's not a $90 steak. It's roll your sleeves up and get shit done. And when I think of the Midwest, like Kansas City or Cleveland, we're not showy people. We act kind, which is so important. It's like I look out and hear of all these people, and I'm like, I feel like I know like over half of you, yet this weekend's the first time we ever met, you know? It's important to act kind and be nice to one another. And again, just like Handsome George, we know that talent's not enough, but we work our asses off to kind of compensate for those things. Being again from Kansas City, it really has shaped the way I work and why I even live in Kansas City. But the city I come from, very much so, has a huge bridge in the arts. And people like Robert Rauschenberg and John Stewart Curry all attended the Kansas City Art Institute. Thomas R. Benton taught there for years and years. Charlie Parker really started what jazz is today in Kansas City. Even more recently, people like Kate Spade got her start in Kansas City. And then himself, Walt Disney's from the state of Missouri, and worked at the Kansas City Star as an illustrator. He started Laughing Films in Kansas City, which he did, him and his partner would create a character that would then become Mickey Mouse in Kansas City. But all these people are great, but there's one particular guy that I've never met him, but it's really the reason that I still call Kansas City home and why I ever moved to Kansas City, and that's a guy named J.C. Hall. And some of you, especially around here, AG, are familiar with this company called Hallmark Cards. And yeah, I think we think of Hallmark Cards as kind of, you know, like fluffy bunnies and flower painting kind of shit, you know, which is great. And yeah, they've done really well with that, right? But more than anything, what's great about Hallmark and what's great about it being in Kansas City is it hires thousands of artists from all over the world. So people from overseas, from all over the United States, move to Kansas City. They fall in love with the Kansas City, they fall in love with the Midwest, and then go and create their own kind of little firms and companies and galleries and things like that. And that's a great, and I'm so thankful that we have that in Hallmark, because in Kansas City with Hallmark, is everywhere you turn, there's a copywriter or an illustrator or a designer or a stylist or whatever it is. And that's really lucky in a city the size of Kansas City to have that great creative kind of field. But again, why I live in Kansas City still, and why I ever lived in Kansas City in the Midwest, is this handsome man on the left, Mr. Steve Carpenter. And this is my dad, circa 1975. I wore a shirt just like that yesterday. And it's very much, he, right out of college, got a job at Hallmark. And he still works there today, which we will never see that, I would assume, with all of us, right? And I literally got to grow up in the halls of Hallmark Cards, which was an amazing place to really start to learn about making and designing and just thinking. And I never had babysitters, and they would just throw me in conference rooms at Hallmark, and there might be a meeting happening, I'd be under a table or something. But that's where and how I got to meet all these amazing people because of my father, who's an amazing illustrator and designer and still works a lot today. And he's done a lot of children's books, and he had a nationally syndicated comic strip for almost 10 years. And really, still to this day, we work together on stuff all the time, and I feel very, very lucky for that. You know, when I was a kid, kind of the first kind of time I really got to experience illustration and graphic design was in 3rd grade. And it was, I applied to, or I sent in a submission to draw the season tickets for the Kansas City Chiefs. I apologize for all my sports references. And again, I wanted to draw these season tickets. I was like, oh, this is kind of cool. And so I did, and I won. And I remember I got to go, like, they honored me at the 50-yard line of a football game at Arrowhead Stadium, and I got to go to the locker room and meet all these guys, and then they actually had a Chiefs player come to my grade school in a Ferrari and do like this whole assembly with passes on the stage, and then after the assembly, a 5th grade girl asked me out. So like, at this point, and I was a little older than this, and you would think this is Halloween, but this was like a Wednesday, so that's going on too. But again, so it's like this first kind of project where I made something for someone, and I said, people will give me things to make them things, and I can get older women. I was 3rd grade, I was in from then. I was like, I like this design and art thing. Like this might have a future for me, you know? And again, and going back to kind of my as a kid hanging out in Hallmark, and I got to meet around the same age a gentleman named Gordon McKenzie. And if anybody hasn't read about Gordon or heard about Gordon, I really encourage you to do so. He worked at Hallmark also for like 30-some years, and I really got to know him when I was a little kid. And his kind of title was a creative paradox, which that really doesn't mean anything. It's a very ambiguous title, and he wanted it that way. But he was a bridge at a company that had, and all UAG people probably are familiar with this too, a company that has thousands of non-creative people and thousands of creative people under one roof. They needed somebody to kind of bridge that gap and explain what some people do and what some people don't do, and kind of bring harmony to the office. And that's really what he did. He eventually would go on to write a book called Orbiting the Giant Hairball, which again, and if you haven't read it, or some of you I'm sure have, I'd highly, highly recommend it, where it really talks about great ways to harness your creativity in any environment. And he was a genius of a guy, and I always took away several things that he would tell me. And one was, everyone has a masterpiece within them from birth. And Gordon would go around at grade schools all the time and talk to kids about being an artist, and what does it mean to be an artist. And he would start out at like kindergarten, and he would ask the kindergartner, hey, how many people are here an artist? How many people here like to draw? And of course, every kid's hands up. You get the double hands, you know, and everyone wants to. So then he moves up to 3rd grade. And, you know, it's about half the class, you know, yeah, I like to draw. And he goes to 6th or 7th grade, and there's just the 1 or 2 of us kind of geeks in the back, you know, and I enjoy drawing, you know, and so it's like, what happens between those years, you know, where some of us start to become self-conscious of what we draw, or how we draw, or what we're making. And Gordon's point always was that everyone can do and make, and everyone should do and make. And I always really like that philosophy, and really, really feel strongly about that we all have this kind of masterpiece within us. He was a big proponent for risk and taking risk, and walking out on kind of said thin ice and wondering if we can stand here. Every few years, you should make a point of trying to take a risk. If that's in your work, if that's in your life, whatever that is, and that's something that Gordon always talked to me about, and I think was really, really important. But more than anything, something that was important to me from Gordon was the power of play and the importance of play in all of our work. You know, from the very beginning when we started to hold pencil or crayon or whatever that was, we were having fun. We were enjoying what we were doing. And that's important to continue to do that, you know, to continue to have a reason to draw and make, not just for a client, but for yourself. And for me, playing around is still a huge part of what I do. You know, I carry around 7x9 sketchbooks all the time, everywhere I go, and just doodle and draw, and none of this is ever used for anything, you know? But it's ways to explore and create ideas and just to explore the way you want to make marks, explore the way you want to draw, the way you think, post-it notes, whatever, you know? Cutting type out of, you know, paper, or making dimensional objects out of some of your illustrations and photo shoots and plush toys. All these things I think are really, really important for us as makers, as designers, to continue just to explore in whatever form or media that is. Because at the end of the day, it's the most important thing for us all to remember is that we get to do this. Like we're part of a really lucky profession. And you know, my best friend in the world is a truck driver, you know? And he doesn't get it when we do it all, you know? But they don't have weapons of mass truck driving festival. You know, like, look at this. This is awesome, you know? And we get to be a part of it. And we have to tell ourselves that. We all get stressed and get pissed off at clients and, oh, it's 3 in the morning, I don't want to freaking work or whatever, you know? But ultimately, we get to do this. We're not having a truck or being an accountant, which that's fine. Like, my best friend's awesome at it, you know? But we get to be a part of this, and I think that's really, really important for us to kind of remember. Again, a little bit more about my practice and kind of what I'm doing. It's kind of broken up into 3 kind of parts. It's probably about 75%, to be honest, is kind of spent with me running my own kind of shop, which again, I brought my entire staff for you today. And that's me. And it's not totally true. I have full-time interns. My wife is an amazing graphic designer, and I'd be lying to you if I didn't tell you she helps me immensely with things. I also co-run a studio called Valhalla Studios. Some of you are familiar in Kansas City. My friend Dan Padovic and I co-run that. We own a lot of machines together, and more specifically, we do a ton of gig posters and tour art for different bands, and that's kind of where we fit in together. But then, again, probably about half of the artists here have sent something via Valhalla and had some prints made, and Dan is the print extraordinaire and handles all of that. He's amazing at it. And again, I also teach. I teach at the University of Kansas. And teaching is one of those things I never knew if I wanted to get into. I was very hesitant, and then I did it, and I really fell in love. And I teach at the University of Kansas. I promise this is the last sports reference. And again, I love my Jayhawks. And I think when most people think of the University of Kansas, we think of basketball. We think of guys like Paul Pierce and Mario Chalmers and the shots against Memphis in 08 for the national championship. I think about maybe this year when KU lost the national championship to the Kentucky cheating Wildcats. And so, again, these things are all what we think of, I think, at least at the University of Kansas. But these aren't the students I ever see. You know, these are the students. These are the minds that I get to know day in and day out, which is, they're, you know, I feel very lucky that they're all so passionate about design, about illustration, about making, and wanting to get better every day. And I feel very lucky to be teaching, and it changes all the time from teaching illustration classes at sophomore, junior, and senior level to even last semester I started teaching a class that was a hybrid between illustration and design, trying to bring the two together, and it was all about mark making. All we did was explore different ways to draw and different ways to make marks. If that was through just basic drawing models, to then drawing iconography and identity systems and typography and all kinds of different things. So it changes all the time, and I'm very lucky for that. And if I didn't teach, and I'm sure a lot of you that are also teachers feel this way, that if I kind of kick that leg out from under my practice of no longer teaching, I'd be nervous how I would still design. Because there's something about teaching when you're going and spending 3, 6, 12 hours a week with students that in teaching them how to have what their process is, to then go back to your studio and kind of bullshit the design out. It's hard to do that because you've just been spending 6 hours telling somebody how the correct way to do something is, and that's really valuable, I think, to do. Again, I mentioned Valhalla Studio, and me and my bud Dan Padovic run that shop and do tons and tons of gig posters and tons of screen printing. We're very lucky to do this, and it's fun to do something like that with a friend of yours. Again, I've got to do a lot of really great posters for a lot of bands and tours that I really admire. I got to meet some great people too. And I think it's easy to kind of design out a poster, but I think what's important is remembering that concept is king and trying to apply concept to every little thing you do. It can be as simple as when I got to do a poster for Bob Dylan, and I was pee my pants scared when I got to do that. And to me, I think back on maybe the greatest gig poster ever designed, which was by Milton Glaser for Bob Dylan, and it's that classic silhouette. And to me, I wanted to make an ode not only just to Bob Dylan, but an ode to Milton Glaser as well when I did the poster for Bob. And it went great. And it's a very minor concept, but I think it's important to try to maintain those kind of concepts within your work. And again, tons more gig posters. Again, in my studio, kind of a few shots of my space and where we're working. And again, that's changing by the moment. But what I really like about what we all do is, at least for me, it's being a storyteller. And I know when a client comes to me, it comes to you, they're coming to us with a product, they're coming to us with a skill or good of some sort, and they don't know how to get that out in the public. And our job is to try to tell their story for them. And for me, it starts with very boring but very important strategy in some way. This is kind of a project I did for an Atlanta-based company called Yeah Burger, and it's a burger franchise that we now have 2 locations. And again, it starts with strategy, just trying to figure out, what people's core values are as a company, what people's brand position are, who are they as a company, who do they want to become, what are their ultimate dreams. But doing this kind of at the very get-go, I think is important because you can reference it the entire time you're designing and making. So when they tell you something you make is awful, you can go back and point to this and be like, hey, you said you like da-da-da-da-da, So it's some concrete thing that you can use I think is really important. Again, every project I start with is just basic pencil and paper. It's the most important part of the entire process to me. It's just starting to draw and come up with concepts and ideas. And I go kind of from there. From then I start to try to explore some basic marks and identities kind of concepts, Why in the world I ever thought it would be a great idea to have a cow as part of a burger? I still don't know. You don't want to see the face of what we're eating, do we? I don't think so. But again, it was part of my process. It was part of, the grand thing that I was trying to create. And none of these icons were even shared with the client, but I made them, and they were part of kind of what we were kind of trying to come up with. I then share with the client 4 very distinct brand identities. Each board is 2 or 3 panels deep, and we talk about different things that they're going to need for the restaurant. These are kind of 4 basic books that I kind of showed the Yeah Burger project, and we really kind of ended up on the left side with the mark from the bottom and kind of this identity from the top. Again, it's a very kinetic system where we have the basic mark at the top there, which we use most of the time, but then it has to break out horizontally, stacked with the mascot, without the mascot, and then again our kind of little tagline. What's interesting about Yeah Burger and why they're kind of unique is they were serving organic and natural in a casual setting, which is really nice, as well as everything is from the state of Georgia, so their food, their beef, their produce, all those things. So this kind of real vibe is very important. A big part of it was illustration. And I knew going into the project that they had all these walls in the space that they needed covered up. They needed, not covered up, they needed to utilize in some way. And to me, I said, you have this message and you want to get that out. That's where we should be doing it. We cover those with illustrations and mixed in with typography and messages. That's a great place to do that. So we created these kind of murals and these kind of places that you can kind of create different messages. So when people are waiting, you're kind of getting a lot of your kind of your brand to them. You're getting your kind of brand message. But I think it's really important to have a nice, subtle way of doing it because you don't want to hit them over the head with this kind of overall, you should be buying with us, or you're horrible if you eat at Hardee's, or whatever it is, So it was a nice kind of subtle way to do that. And again, a bunch of different various kind of things that are made together. And really, ultimately, I got this tweet from a young lady, and she said, went to a place tonight based solely on their logo and design. Yeah Burger and the ATL. Oh, and my burger had bacon jam on it. What? Bacon jam. And so, again, it's one of those things that, it's a very simple little tweet, but, for all of us as designers and makers, that's the biggest, feather in our cap that we could ever ask for. That somebody was, driving down the street and saw what we made and was like, I want to go to that. I want to take my money, And and if that doesn't show the importance of what we do and what we continually do, I don't know what does. And that, that was, I just love that little just basic tweet from her that she said that. And as smooth as Yeah Burger went, there's times where it's not that smooth. And again, another burger franchise I designed years ago, where it really proved a point to me that the client is not always right. And I think our grandfathers always kind of like grew up telling us like, the client is right, make sure that they're always happy, and you always, well yeah, you don't want to be an asshole, but like you really have to fight for what you believe in. I think that you were being hired for a reason, and that's important, and you need to stand up for what you believe. Like I said, you don't want to be an asshole, but be kind and be honest. You're being hired for a reason, and your opinion and your thoughts and your ideas are valued, and you need to make sure that your name is attached to these projects, you know? And more than anything, you don't want to just be like a hired hand, and yes sir, here's your girl. You know, it's put some thought into it, and then when you're doing this, always remember to never let it get unfun. Again, back on that kind of the importance of play and the power of play, that what we're doing is fun. It really is. But again, another burger franchise where I was just creating all these different marks and all these kinds of things. And with this burger franchise, what they were was very much all about customization. So if you wanted to come in there and get like a fried green tomato on your burger, they had you covered, or a piece of salmon, or peanut butter, whatever, you could build your world. So I had this kind of idea of these little like kinetic system of burger creatures that would be created based on the ingredients that you're putting on. And I loved it. I was like, oh, this is so great. This will be so fun. And you know, that's what the client wanted. It's like, I think we just go with this, like this. And I was like, that's just like set type, dude. Like, are you what? You know, just like an hour-long meeting. And I was just like, man, no, like, this is awful. Are you sure? You know, and I left this meeting like so defeated, just like a total kick in the crotch. You know, it was just awful. And I was driving back to the office, and I guess we're building an identity based on just like this little set type, you know, and I knew he was missing an opportunity, and I knew he was making a mistake, and so I turned my car around and I went back to where we had the meeting, and I told him that, and I said, you know, Rob is the client, and his name, and I said, you know, I really think there's a huge opportunity you're missing for what this brand could be and what your restaurant could be. And I went on my whole like dog and pony show again and all this, and he said, you know, I know a lot about running a restaurant and a lot about cooking, but this is your world. Like, I trust you, you know? First off, I was like, where the hell was that? I think he saw my passion for what we all do and for this project, and he said, you know what, I'm gonna roll the dice with you, kid. I trust you, you know? And I think there's something to be said about that. And we did. We went down this kind of, this kinetic system of different burgers are creating personalities based on the ingredients that are going on them. And it's all about customization. You can get anything in the world that you want at Chef Burger. And again, of course, we did all kinds of great fun things. Again, another project that I kind of recently did, I think some of us have heard of Adobe, and it's kind of like getting a phone call from the pencil, kind of, you know, like y'all use it a lot, you know, and like my first kind of thought when they called me was like, first off, how the hell do you know who the hell I am? So that's cool, right? Second of all, I really hope you don't know I'm still using pirated software from nothing college. That's what was going to happen, but that didn't happen, which is cool. But what they came to me for was they released CS6 here very recently, right? And I was lucky enough to get a pre-release of it early last summer. And they said, hey, we have new CS6, and we're asking a few people to just play with it. I want you to just play with the new software and play with, more specifically, some of the new tools that Adobe Illustrator is going to offer. They offer things like, there's this great new pattern tool, there's you can do gradient strokes, you can customize your workspace a little better. So it was an amazing project to get in on the ground floor of what they're doing. And really what they wanted me to do is create an illustration and document the whole thing. And it was really fun, and the concept of it was if some of you remember the old school Illustrator, and all the packaging was Botticelli's Venus painting, you know? So they wanted me to do my own kind of interpretation of it. And now, so when you buy, that's kind of my interpretation of it. And then again, when you take, is that all? Again, when you buy Adobe Illustrator or steal it, however you deal with that, but like get a PDF tutorial now with my weird steps on how I build things. And again, the pattern tool, we built this little shopping bag too. which is kind of fun to do out of some of the patterns in the pattern tool. I think you guys will really dig it. It was really fun. And again, something I think a lot of people talk about. I think a lot of people last year talked about it. And definitely know some of the speakers tomorrow. I know Kate Bingham and Bert did an amazing job with passion projects. And for me, it's no different. And I think for you guys and everybody, doing things that are really, truly important to you make you a better designer. And it gives you inspiration on other projects. And for me, it's all about inventing something you love, writing something you'd read, make something you buy, you know? And there's other reasons too, of course. But I think that's a great way to start to think about passion projects. Like, what out there would I like to see, or what would I like to hear? And for me, it started with just doing screen prints. And more than anything, it just allowed me to explore. You know, that's what it's about. That's what passion projects are about. Or there's no consequence. You're not attached to an outcome. And that's important when designing for passion projects. Not being too attached to an outcome. Because when you do that, you can be kind of locked in what you're going to end up with. And these are just screen prints and fun and exploring different ways of making and printing on wood and printing on different random objects, you know. It's inside one of my flat files. It's all about experimentation and just trying to get an idea out of your head. For me, my passion projects lately have turned into even more literal versions of storytelling, which I talk about a lot. And they kind of started in Greece, of all the places. My wife and I got married 3 years ago, and we're lucky enough to go to Greece, which was crazy. It's kind of cheap there right now. And so we were, my wife, of course, I brought my sketchbook and all my work with me, which she loves. And for our honeymoon, life like that. And so again, we're sitting on the, just got done getting married like a few days ago, and we love each other, and it's great, right? And anybody in here who's planned a wedding knows how awesome that is. And so it's this full year of planning for one day, you know? And I'm sitting there thinking, I'm just like, Jesus, like, it's over. Like, we just planned a party for one day or a whole year, and all our relatives, and all the fighting, and all the, you know, and I was like, I bet Santa Claus gets really bummed out on December 26th. Like, that dude works all year round for one day a year, you know? Like, that's awful. Like, that's gotta be a horrible feeling on December 26th. And I just was playing, thinking of ideas, and I just started writing and coming up with ideas like, oh, what could happen? And how could this be a linear story? What could this be? Sketching just basic kind of ideas, you know? And I've been lucky enough to do some children's books with various publishers, and when we got back to the States and a few months go by, and I kind of, you know, carve out an hour here and an hour there to kind of work on some little manuscript and a couple little sketches. And then there was a publisher that was an idiot enough to acquire it from me. And there's going to be a book that's going to be out this October 2nd called Sad Santa. And it's about Santa being super bummed out every December 26th. So I'm really excited for that. It's a labor of love. And that's what it's all about. I love doing client work. I truly do. But mixing in these passion projects, I think, are really important. And then it didn't even stop. I'm doing 2 more books with a different publisher. And again, it was a purely a kind of an idea I had. It's a series called I Say, You Say. And it's going to be a 4-book series. The first 2 are out this September. And it's all about visual literacy and responding to the kid and the adult in your life. And really starting to kind of figure out responding to visual kind of things. So like, I say small, you say big, you know, things like that. But there's all these flaps and things to explore, which is awesome. P.S. Don't show anybody these because my publisher said I can't show them, so they can beat it. So yeah, and then again, going back on posters, really anybody in here who's ever done a big poster knows you don't do them to get paid. Like, I mean, yeah, you get paid, but like they're passion projects. Like, they really are. I've loved it almost more than anything I work on. But what's great about doing peak posters is they turn into more work. They truly, truly do. It's a great place to experiment with style and ideas. And I got to do a campaign for Ray-Ban recently, and it was purely based off of the gig posters. They saw those. They wanted a poster created for their Never Hide campaign. They send me these horribly unattractive flower sunglasses, and they wouldn't even let me keep them. I had to send them back. They sent me this flowered sunglasses and said, hey, there's a pattern on it. We want to promote this. Create an illustration and a poster based on that pattern. And this is kind of the pattern, or the illustration I came up with. And again, it's shown everywhere. It was used in all their national campaigns. We did a live action version of it with this dude, and they even painted the inside of his ear blue, like an illustration, which is interesting. And in the middle there we have, again, how small the world is. My dad, who works for Hallmark, was walking down the street in Beijing, and walked up on like a sunglass hut or something, you know, and was like, dude, your illustration is 12 feet tall in Beijing as I'm walking to Hallmark Beijing or whatever, you know? And how cool is that? Like, that's so amazing that we get to make things and people all over the world get to see them and enjoy them. It's about as good as it gets, you know? And then again, doing more posters for people, someone like Conan O'Brien called me, and it wasn't really Conan, but like it was his hands, but I pretended it was Conan. And again, they did a summer concert series, and it was all these very diverse lineup, like Kesha and Pitbull and people like that. But anyway, when I approaching this project, I really wanted it to feel branded. I really wanted them to be cohesive and together. So creating this kind of color palette, but then also kind of creating, if you line them all up, they work as kind of as a series together, and that was important to me. But then again, a challenge of each one was I had to make sure I had Conan somewhere in each poster, as well as all his iconography from each artist. So it's like if you look at Kesha, there's like pill bottles and sparkly shit everywhere. Then Edward Sharp is like home and like desert and some other references from his album, and KT Tunstall is big black horse and a cherry tree, and Pitbull is like hotels and obviously a giant Pitbull. So, but then again, yeah, Conan makes an appearance in all of them, which is great. Like, this is a dream project, but what made it even better was when Conan sent me a package when we all finished it, and he wrote on one, he's like, and he signed all the posters for me. Hugh Cass, you were Italian there. Again, Cass, it doesn't get any better than that, you know? I love Coco. It's so great. But just to kind of recap some very basic ideas, and I will get out of your hair. For me, it's all about embracing the power of play. Remember why we got into this, and I think that's really important, and you'll make better work when you're passionate about it. Take risk. Step on that thin ice, step out on that branch and see if it'll support you. Most likely it's going to if it's something you love and you're passionate about. Love what you do. If you don't love it, leave it, you know? Bail, because life is short and we should all be doing something that we're lucky and we're excited to wake up to every morning, you know? Passion projects are good. You can write weird books about Santa Claus, you know? But they are, that is what, passion projects generally are something that you are most passionate about, and that's what you're going to put your heart and soul into. And I think that's hugely important. Exercise. This has nothing to do with design, but it's like good advice. It's a very good advice. I'll shut up now. Thank you all so much.